In the skies over Washington, the moment of impact caught on camera. The horrifying collision between an American Airlines jet and a military helicopter over the nation's capital.
Crash, crash, crash. This is Alert 3. Crash, crash, crash. This is Alert 3.
Air traffic control radar captured the moment the paths of the two aircraft crossed. Hundreds of emergency personnel were called into action. Teams from DC, from Virginia, and from Maryland converging on a freezing night on the banks of the Potomac. Divers spent the night in the frigid water of the river, scouring the area for survivors. It was at this stage a rescue, but given what the cameras had caught, a rescue based more on hope than expectation. And by the early hours of the morning, the news no officials ever want to share. Experts at the scene alongside the recovery teams, all as the search for those who died continues along a debris field that is widening with strong currents and winds. It is America's worst aviation accident in over 2 decades. As the sun rose over the Potomac, the debris was visible, with questions now turning to how the crash was able to happen in one of the most controlled parts of American airspace.
They're flying again into Ronald Reagan Airport. Downriver, a routine cam has returned to the flight path over the Potomac. The cam belies the catastrophe that claimed 67 lives. Taking off the day after is to fly past the effort to recover wreckage and victims. We are learning who they were. Russian skaters Evgenia Shishkova and Vadim Nomov of Russia are among them. The married couple were world champions in the 1990s. They had been flying back from this event, U.S. Skating Championships in Wichita, Kansas.
Would you please welcome to the ice, Gina Hahn.
Gina Hahn was among members of the skating club of Boston who died. Her mother, Jin, traveling with her, also perished. Spencer Lane had also been on board the flight, another of the Boston skaters who died alongside coaches and parents who traveled alongside them. Spencer's mother, Christine, was with him. She too was a victim. Former U.S. skating champion Nancy Kerrigan was once a member of the Boston skating club involved.
The main lesson I think learned in skating is you get back up. Keep on trying, and even when it's hard, you get back up. Even when you're crying, hurt, pain, you get back up and move forward. It's not easy, but that's what we all have to do now together.
At the Washington airport overnight, relatives of those who died had come looking for news.
I'm just praying that somebody's pulling her out of the river right now as we speak. That's all I can pray for. I'm just praying to God. She texted me that they were landing in 20 minutes. Landing in 20 minutes, the rest of my text didn't get delivered. That's when I realized something might be up.
The wreckage lies in full view on the river's surface here. It is a sight to haunt this city. They know what cost the lives of 67 souls.
The investigation will determine what caused this collision. But here's what we know about what happened from publicly available data. We've plotted the latitude and longitude and the altitude data from the passenger jet and the helicopter to show the routes that both aircraft took. You can see them here in green and blue for the passenger jet and red for the helicopter. Now, by 8:34 p.m., the jet had completed its descent to 4,000 feet and was circling back to approach Washington, D.C. from the south. As it completes that circle, it starts its final descent and began following the path of the Potomac River north to the airport. And the majority of planes arriving into Reagan Airport on that day did so on this runway on the left, but the plane was given permission to approach runway 33, the diagonal line here. Now, this airspace is often busy with helicopters, including the US military Black Hawk, which was on a training exercise. And this map shows the routes helicopters are supposed to take over the Baltimore-Washington area. In some places, helicopters are told to fly no higher than 200 feet, but in others, they can go up to 1,500. And it appears the Black Hawk helicopter took a standard flight path down towards Haines Point and past the airport. Now, the helicopter that is up here in red, it was flying lower and heading south. And air traffic control was aware how close the two aircraft were. I asked the helicopter whether they could see the plane, a model of jet called CRJ.
Pass 25, get the CRJ in flight. Pass 25, pass one is CRJ. Did you see that?
But again, this is busy airspace. There is a larger jet preparing to land behind the American Airlines plane, a potential distraction on the runway that is more commonly used. And at 400 feet of altitude, 140 miles per hour, the flight tracking stops, the moment of collision. CCTV footage shows a flash of light in the sky at 8:47 p.m. local time. Immediately, air traffic control asks other planes for assistance.
Blackjack 3, do you have any kind of like searchlight or maybe anything on board that would help shed some light at the east end of the field? Over the top, head towards Anacostia, and I'll call you back. Muscle 1-3, do you have any kind of searchlight on board?
Around 10 minutes later, boats are already on the water. This shows marine traffic in the area at the time. Scouring the dark waters of the Potomac, they quickly located the plane wreckage. And at this stage, it was still a search and rescue mission. A few hours later, it became a recovery operations, as officials said there were no survivors. And questions will focus on the helicopter in particular, whether it was in the right place, at the right altitude, and if not, why not?
The people in the helicopter should have seen where they were going. I can't imagine people with 20/20 vision not seeing, what's happening up there.
And then at the air traffic controllers, claiming this national tragedy is the consequence of a woke recruitment policy.
The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine?
You're trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.